Hey, I'm so glad you're joining me here on Rolonda On Demand. I'm Rolonda Watts, and my guest today, Judge Karen Friedman. Talk about somebody in the gritty crime area. We're going to talk with Judge Friedman not only about crime and how crime has really gone up, particularly domestic crime during this COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown. But also, I wanted to talk with her about the Black Lives Matter movement, how that might be affecting the judicial system as well. We're going to talk about that as well as how faith, herself being an Orthodox Jewish woman, how she uses her faith in her work. So we're going to have a good talk today. Before we get into Judge Karen Friedman, let me just take care of some home business here. Please be sure to follow the show, whether you're watching right now on my YouTube channel, the Rolonda Watch channel, or you're listening on your podcast, your favorite podcast network like iTunes or Spotify, rolondaondemand.com. You can get right to a listening podcast. Please follow the show, subscribe, tell a friend, give a rating. Please, let's get this show out there. Let's get this show out there. And also, please follow me every day of the week at Rolonda Watts, Rolonda, Rolonda Watts, on all forms of social media. And if you have some great ideas you'd like to share with me about some podcasts you think would be, something right up your alley, email me, rolonda@rolonda.com. Now, let's get to our show. Rolonda On Demand.
It's road time.
Welcome to Rolonda On Demand.
I love my podcast because we not only tackle the tough issues of the day, but we deal with hot topics, celebrity interviews, and information that can help you in your business or relationships.
This is Rolonda On Demand.
I think Judge Karen Friedman, is one of the most dynamite women I know that I know. And I know Baltimore Baltimore is blessed to have her talent and her heart in the judicial system. It's just really. I mean, and I was talking earlier about how you were this miracle star in the legal eagle world. At 29 being, that's a big position.
You are exaggerating just a little bit as my friend, but that's fine.
I'm going to bump you up. But this is something you have loved. I mean, you grew up, one of the other things I love about Karen is she's from Brooklyn. That's right. Another thing.
That's right.
But this has been something you've loved, the whole legal field. Talk about, where does that passion come from? Here you are, this little girl growing up in an Orthodox Jewish family in Brooklyn, and become this huge judge in Baltimore covering crime and grit and the rest, and all the other philanthropic things you do. What drives you? What is that?
Good question. I've always wanted to be a lawyer since I was literally able to speak, and I'm not quite sure why, because no one in my family were lawyers. I think I just grew up at a time where there were a lot of very sexy law shows. We had LA Law, which was a great show, and there was even a show on PBS that probably a lot of people don't remember, which is called Paper Chase. And it was also about a show of and I always loved the idea of the back and forth, that Socratic method of learning and really trying to just elicit thoughts and thinking and really developing your mind and being challenged. And I always like to talk. I always like to argue. So it kind of was a natural fit. I think that the way that I developed in that field really came from my upbringing. I mean, in my religion, it's very important to give back. And, we really strongly believe that to whom much is given, much is expected. We have a strong concept of, and it's interesting, actually, I was watching Congressman John Lewis's funeral yesterday, and I can't remember which speaker, it might have been President Obama, who he talked about it as well, how every single person is created in the image of God. So that means every person has a bit of the divine in them. So that means that every person who comes in front of you, even if they're in chains, even if they're a drug addict, even if they have mental health, whatever issues, whatever it is, every single person has a piece of the divine in them. And that, so if you really, truly, innately believe that, then every single person deserves a level of respect because they all represent the divine.
The divine.
And so therefore you need to make sure that every person who comes in front of you is treated as an individual with respect, with kindness, with understanding, while still doing your job. And I don't think that those two things are mutually exclusive. I think you can be a judge and still be compassionate and still be thoughtful and still be purposeful.
Yeah, wait, hold on 1 second. The gardeners are here and my dog is doing that.
Okay. He just wanted to hear the interview.
He was just barking. Oh, I got new gardeners, so he's not familiar with them. So he was out there like he's this big, like he's gonna do something. But he was. Could you hear him barking?
Not really, no.
Okay, good. Okay, go sit down, Mike. You're a watchdog. Good.
Feel so safe now, right?
Yeah, what did you think about that? Those were some beautiful ceremonies. I mean, think about how many times they celebrated his life and what.
Yeah. And actually, I just saw there's going to be a special on CBS. I think like a whole hour, 2 hour special about him.
I don't even know enough about him. I mean, I think even living through the Jim Crow South and certainly have benefited from him getting his skull cracked and doing all the things that amazingly he did. We're all still learning about him. And I think this is also a time when we're learning about ourselves.
I just don't think that there's a lot of, I don't think in general kids are taught in school a lot about that history. And it really is a shame because it really is the founding of our country and how we got to where we are, et cetera. And it's interesting because I actually was thinking about that, but in a little bit of a different context. And the context is that unfortunately, through everything that's been going on with Black Lives Matters and the protests, unfortunately, there's been a lot of anti-Semitism that has really showed its ugly face again, as it always does cyclically. And and it was sad to me to see it coming from the direction where it was coming from, because I have always believed that Jewish people and African Americans have a natural alliance.
Mm-hmm.
The same people that hate you hate me. Okay. So the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And there's a very just symbiotic natural alliance that has always been in our two communities.
That, no question. I mean, look at historically.
Right. But that was exactly my point. My point is that a lot of people don't know that history in the African American community and in the Jewish community. They don't know how, about the Jewish guys who were killed in Selma. I think actually also someone I'm pointing to the TV, someone in their speech did mention Goodman and
Cheney.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So,
and these were Jewish guys who were down there trying to help Black folks vote.
Correct.
I mean, this was an amazing thing. When you bring that up, and you and I talk about this all the time. We have such a rich love for each other's cultures that I sometimes I want to be honorary Jewish. It's like I love their culture so much that we learn so much from each other. But there is so much of that similarity. That's why I think it hurts so much to hear Nick Cannon when he lost his job for it, but said some very derogatory things toward the Jewish community. Now, is that, and like I said, he lost his job. There are many who say, well, yeah, there are a lot of white folks who say stuff about Black folks, they lost their jobs.
Right.
But I think beyond all of that, and then there's going to come the question of, are we a cancel culture or counsel culture? But it just hurts so much, I think, just because of the historic the ambience or, togetherness that you've brought up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I was very disturbed by what Nick said. And he doesn't have a history of that. Mm-hmm. So it was very, very surprising. I personally believe in a certain level of counsel before cancel. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I think that there are a lot of repeat offenders, and I think repeat offenders need to be treated differently than a first-time offender like Nick Cannon was. Mm-hmm. And I was very happy to hear that a rabbi from the Simon Wiesenthal Center spoke to him and educated him, which is wonderful, because that's really what it's about. We need to be educated. Both of us need to be educated before you speak.
Before you speak.
Before you speak. You really do need to be responsible before you speak, because people do listen to you, and you have an influence on people. People assume that you know what you're talking about. They take what you say much more seriously than any other Joe Schmo. So you really need to be responsible and educated before you speak. Right. And your friends, right, need to be responsible in their support of you before they support you. So,
well, that's true too.
With Nick Cannon, he has a lot of famous friends, and rightfully so. Nick's been around for a really long time. So, and a lot of them just came out and automatically is like, we're for Nick, right? Mm-hmm. And then they actually heard what he said.
Like, and for those who don't know what he said, he basically said that people without melanin have no compassion and are basically savages. Unquote.
Right.
So
specifically geared to Jews, to white Jews.
Yeah.
But again, I think he's taken the time to educate himself.
Yeah.
I think that he has apologized. Mm-hmm. And I think that people do deserve second chances to make up for a wrong. I don't think that.
Well, maybe he'll get his talk show back, because they put that on hold too. I mean, people are not playing with this anymore. I think this whole thing of enough already. We're seeing it even from the animation world and voiceovers with actors now, after 20 years of playing black characters, the white actors are now, it's just this changing, evolving thing. But one of the things I think the real, maybe not for us a wake-up call, but a real realization moment is just how much of the race relations, or the lack thereof, is so systemic in this nation, particularly in the justice system. I mean, or let me ask you, is it?
You and I have these conversations all the time, and you and I have a safe space to talk about these things, right? I could say anything to you and ask you any question, and you will respond to me with love and with an explanation, and vice versa. I think part of what we're missing here in this country right now is a safe space. I think that white people are scared to ask questions and try to get a better understanding from their black friends, or black people they know, black coworkers, whatever it is, or black platforms, whatever it is, because there's a certain level of almost every question we ask, we're so scared it's going to appear to be a racist question. The way you phrased the question was racist. Right. And if people are scared to ask questions, and they don't feel safe, they don't feel like they have a safe space to ask questions, they're going to be walking around with that same ignorance or misunderstanding. And that's a real shame. I think that this is, now that people are really focused on this, and we have an opportunity to have conversation, and we're learning what questions to ask, which is, I think, is an important place to start in a conversation, is even learning what the issues are to address. Right. I feel I would hope that we can create more platforms where people could ask the questions without the finger pointing, without just the way you phrased that question is racist. That's not the
right. That knee-jerk reaction.
right.
And and listen, there's so much hostility held up, and for the first time you get to talk about it. So sometimes it's emotional management, and this is the most emotional thing. But look at the root of that, the motion in there. We're getting somewhere with this. And you're right. I mean, I'm just trying to think I try to hear, at least on Rolonda On Demand, try to open, and I love what you said, and I'm so happy you said it so well. Because I do say to my Black friends, don't be so quick to point a finger. I mean, listen, don't educate, don't aggravate, right. Or escalate. Let's just take a moment, take a breather. We're all on this learning curve together. People are trying to manage their businesses now. I had a friend who called me and just said, help me. I had no idea. He said, I look at my business, there's nobody in here of color. I look at my board, it's lily white. But I'm not a racist. I said, well, these are conversations we really need to have. I mean, right. So it's how can we facilitate? What else can we do? Town hall meetings, blogs? What can the average Joe Schmo do?
I mean, I've seen some videos. I don't remember who it was. I think maybe D. Wade had on his Instagram this guy, and of course I don't remember his name because I barely could remember what I had for breakfast. Who basically has like a YouTube channel or something about like all the things that white people really want to know but are afraid to ask.
Oh, that's cool.
Right. And really like basic questions like why BLM as opposed to all life matter, right? Why Black Lives Matter as opposed to all lives matter? Mm-hmm. What's the subtlety in that? Why don't, because a lot of white people really don't get that. And that's, that really is something that needs to be explained because obviously all lives matter, but people have to understand that Black Lives Matters is not saying that your life doesn't matter, right? If you have a beautiful block of houses, right? But one of the houses are on fire, right? And you're like focused on getting the fire out of this house. And it doesn't mean that all the other beautiful houses on the block don't matter. They're just still as beautiful. And the police need to keep an eye on it. The fire department, everyone still needs to, to care about these houses. But right now, that house is the one on fire. So that's the one we need to focus on. That's the house. That 6201, all right, whatever the house number is, that's the house that everybody's focused on.
That's right.
That's the one in trouble. It don't matter. But right now, 6201 is the issue,
Sister Karen, I'm going to use that example from now on. I think I can handle that one a little better.
Okay, you're welcome. No need to even quote me.
Right. Oh my God. But something, I will say this, that I have had some really good conversations about race and even class. And, it gives me a chance to talk about my book, which is now something, I think that people are starting to use their art more to talk about, whatever it is we're going through as a nation.
I think the class conversation is really huge.
Yeah.
I really, really do. Because to me, that's a lot of it, especially from where I'm sitting and what I see.
Yeah, talk from your point of view, from the bench.
I don't, listen, I'm not saying, I know that there are wealthy African Americans that get pulled over by the police and all that. I'm not seeing those people. Okay, so I don't know if that's just Baltimore, because Baltimore is a less affluent city. But most of the people that I see in front of me every day, a lot of them are there not as much for race issues as much as class issues.
And what does that mean?
That means that they are there because they have a problem that wasn't addressed because of a lower class standing and poverty, basically. So, listen, again, I'm not saying there aren't rich people who are drug addicts, okay? But they're not really being arrested, right? If you're in your beautiful home in, the Hollywood Hills, doing your drugs and getting drunk out, exactly, the police are generally not coming to your house, right?
Right.
But if you're living in a poverty-stricken hood neighborhood, right? You are getting arrested for using drugs, having drugs, selling drugs, homelessness, mental health issues, right? There, again, not that there aren't rich people who have mental health issues, but a lot of those people are getting help, right?
Well, it's like what, I mean, I hate to be so Hollywood, but it is really a lot what we saw on The Wire.
Baltimore, yes.
Baltimore, yeah.
I thought you were going to bring up Kanye, but yes, it is. It is.
Oh, that's a whole nother topic.
That's a whole other show.
Whole nother show.
And my heart, honestly, my heart goes out to Kim.
And you know something, and mental health, let's be real about that too. And I got to give love and compassion and support out to him and the family.
I see people like that all the time. Families that come in front of me and they're just besides themselves, desperate to do something to help their loved one. And the law is really not helpful. It just, the law really limits what a judge can do for a family like that.
It's because we haven't dealt with it, because it's a stigma, or it just hadn't been dealt with.
I think that there are, I don't think that we've really thought out mental health issues very well in this country in general. I don't think that legislators or Congress or anyone has really dealt with it. We thankfully in this country have very strict due process issues. And once someone's 18, they are afforded a certain level of due process. So just to lock someone up for mental health and put them in a hospital comes with a lot of due process issues. Right. And I just think that they haven't really it hasn't been dealt with. They haven't put together, yet the necessity of the situation and the severity and the emergency nature of the situation, along with the due process issues. They just really haven't figured out a great way to solve that. Right. But again, I don't think that much energy has been put into it, but it's definitely something that needs to be addressed. Right. But I definitely, if Kanye decided not to take his medication, he at least has medication, right? He at least has doctors who have been working with him. When you have a situation where someone's really poor or living in a poor neighborhood where they don't really have access to healthcare professionals like that, they're not getting physicals, let alone mental health therapy, right? It's a very difficult situation, and it's going to end up in the criminal justice system somewhere, because unfortunately, today, what has happened is that the criminal justice system has become the repository for all the ills in society that are not being dealt with anywhere else. You're a drug addict, you get arrested for drugs. You're homeless, you're getting arrested for disturbing the peace or roving vagabond. You have mental health, so you assault someone, so now you're in the system for assault. You're an alcoholic, so you hit your wife, now you're in the domestic violence arena. Mm-hmm. All these issues are getting addressed by the system, and that's not what the system was set up for. And honestly, that's not what our specialty is as judges. But my feeling has always been that no one else is dealing with it. So somebody needs to step up and say, it needs to be dealt with. So if no one else is doing it and you're standing in front of me, how dare I just not care and just keep it moving, when all that's going to end up happening is he's just going to end up right back in the system. And it's like this vicious.
But Karen, tell our audience how many cases you deal with a day. This is no joke. I mean, what Karen does day to day is amazing. How many cases, criminal cases, do you deal with a day?
Right. I pretty much only deal with criminal cases. My court does everything. We do civil, we do family, we do juvenile. My heart is in civil, in the criminal, so I try to stay in criminal as much as I can. So on the last docket I was doing, I was probably seeing on an average day 40 to 50 cases by lunch.
By lunch?
By lunch. Yeah, by lunch.
How do you, I'm certainly not taking away from your professionalism or expertise, but how do you get a handle on each case?
I'm a pretty quick thinker.
Yeah. And you know your stuff.
Right. And I've been doing this a really, really long
Right. And
time.
it's not, after you
20
see a
years.
few murders, it's pretty much this,
Okay, so on those 40, 50 cases, I'm not seeing murderers.
you're not murder. Okay.
So we're not dealing with murderers. So murderers and rapists that's a whole different courtroom.
Okay.
The docket I prefer to stay on is the docket about dealing with the people that we're talking about. Okay, once you're already accused of murder,
Right.
there's
That's
not
a
a
whole
lot.
nother point.
There's not a lot I can do at this point, right?
But I like how you're
not
helping.
by-
Right. I like how you're helping us see the difference there, because I had lumped all criminals in one pot. But what you're saying is it's those people who didn't have the anger management or didn't have the mental health or the drug rehabilitation. And you believe that's where your counsel over.
Well, again, I'm not saying that the people who have been arrested for murder or convicted of murder don't have those issues.
Sure.
Because
sure.
I personally do not believe that people are innately evil. Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
There may be a couple of psychopaths. I'm not saying not, right? We've had a couple of serial killers, and there are some people who are psychopaths. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Most people are not innately evil people. There are people who have been in crazy, tough situations that unfortunately that's the environment in which they developed, so they end up the way that they end up. Okay. I mean, just think about it for a second, right? Let's say, God forbid, I'll take one, my kid. God forbid, my kid was 10 years old. He was outside playing with his friend. He's on his little bike, and his friend's on his little bike. All of a sudden, someone drives by, shoots his best friend, kid dies right there in front of my child, right? Mm-hmm. What would I do, right? Me, Karen Friedman, I would immediately, obviously, take my kid to the emergency room, get him checked out. Then I would have him meet with a psychiatrist. Then probably for the next 2 years, I would have him in therapy every single day.
Every day.
I would call the school and tell the school, let him be, let him do what he needs to do. Let's give him an individual education plan. He's not, if there's a day he can't come to school because I'm going to keep him home, right? It would literally, getting him well from that experience would literally become the central focus of my life.
Entirely.
There are kids in neighborhoods in this city that experience that every day and get nothing. Okay, time to come in for supper, time to go to school, no mental health services. And they are walking around with that kind of trauma and that kind of PTSD for the rest of their lives. So then when that 10-year-old becomes 18 and is now, caught with a handgun, is anyone really surprised? Why are we surprised? Look what he experienced. Don't you think he's going to want to protect himself, feel unsafe?
That's right.
Why are we, and then once you have a gun, generally, when there's a gun, there's something's going to happen. Right? I mean, I tell most of the guys who I see between 18 and 21, 22 that are caught with a gun, there's only 2 ways this story ends up. This story either ends with you dead or you in jail. Those are the options when you're already carrying around a gun, right? In those dangerous neighborhoods. Okay, so it's not shocking, right? It's not shocking. But when you're talking about the kids, the guys, the men who are accused of murder, et cetera, or the really serious crimes, it's not that they don't have those issues, okay, that has led them. It's that it's a little bit too late, right? Once you're accused of murder, you're facing life in jail. There's really not that much I can do for you at that point. You have broken, even if it's not your fault, you have broken the code of society. Right.
Absolutely.
You have broken, the 10 Noahide laws, okay?
Right. Even I know that commandment.
So there's really at that point, unfortunately, there's not very much I can do.
You're right.
But
you are known for your programs, and you are known for them being effective. I mean, it's, I don't know, I don't know if you know this, but you are known for your programs, and you are known for them being effective. I mean, it's, you are known for your programs, and you are known for them being effective. I mean, it's, you are known for your programs, and you are known for them being effective. I mean, it's, you are known for your programs, and you are known for them being effective. I mean, it's, you are known for your programs, and you are known for them being effective. I mean, it's, you are known for your programs, and you are known for them being effective. I mean, it's, you are known for your programs, and you are known for them being effective. I mean, it's, you are known for your programs, and you are known for them being effective. I mean, it's, you are known for your programs, and you are known for them being effective. I mean, it's, you are known for your programs, and you are known for them being effective. I mean, it's, you are known for your programs, and you are known for them being effective. I mean, it's, you are known for your programs, and you are known for them being effective. I mean, it's, you are known for your programs, and you are known for them be I have to tell folks this, that we call Karen adoringly the high heel judge, because the woman loves shoes and loves jewelry, and she can wear that black robe all day. But even the people she's putting behind bars are like, you know, you wear some jewelry. You remember you telling me stories about that. But you have a good rapport, even in the dire situations of somebody's existence. You want the best for them. You want them to win. And you have been awarded and granted opportunities to speak at Harvard, all because, a lot because of what you bring to the table. And also with domestic violence, your interfaith domestic violence. Is it a coalition that you have of interfaith? Talk to me about what, I was listening today about them talking about kids going back to school, and I want to get your opinion on that too. But they were talking about kids going back to school, and a lot of the concern was how much domestic violence was going on. And these kids were in these abusive homes, nobody tracking, schools can tell, or your place of worship can tell, or your doctor can tell. We're not even seeing pediatricians now. So that when I saw that Interfaith Domestic Violence Coalition, I was like, you guys have got to be busy now. What is going on? I know crime is up. The
coalition really came about because when I was in the lower court where most of the protective orders were taking place. I would hear these protective order cases day after day after day. Excuse me, and it was very frustrating to me, and I really wanted to try to do something. So I put together the coalition, and I decided to do it on an interfaith basis because at the end of the day, for many victims of domestic violence, their clergy person, whatever religion it is, but their clergy person, a lot of times is the first person that they reveal their situation to. Oh. And because of the nature of that relationship between clergy person and congregant, a lot of times that clergy person's initial reaction to what they are hearing will be very, very important in this person deciding what steps they want to take next. Right. Okay. So, and we know that most religions, if not all religions, believe in the sanctity of the family. Okay. And they have a goal of keeping families together, which I understand. That's always should be the ultimate goal, unless there is violence in that home. Right. If that home is unsafe and there is violence, then there needs to be an understanding of the problem. So if a clergy person just tells that woman, go home, make him a nice dinner, exactly, put on something pretty, and it'll be fine, then that clergy person really doesn't understand the dynamic of domestic violence. Right. Because domestic violence is about power and control. It has nothing to do with how good dinner was, how good a wife you are, how well behaved the kids are, about gaining weight. It's not about any of that. It is about power and control. And most abusers are going to be abusive no matter what relationship. They can be married to a supermodel who cooks dinner every night. If you have that need for that power and control, you will be abusive in your next relationship as well. So my goal was to educate clergy person to say, hey, this is how you recognize domestic violence. This is what it is. This is what you should, more importantly than do, this is what you shouldn't do.
Right, exactly.
My goal was to teach them no evil, right? Do no harm. And then refer out. Because you are not a trained professional for domestic violence. I am not a trained professional for domestic violence. But there are people in every community that are. So do no harm and refer. Refer to people who can actually affirmatively help. I want you not to hurt, and then find someone who could affirmatively help. Right. And my goal is also to to teach them a little bit about what they can do. So for example, safety planning, right?
Mhm.
Every woman who's in an abusive situation, even if she's not ready to leave, should have an escape plan.
Mhm.
Should have a plan of, I'm not ready to leave right now, but if he crosses this line, I'm out. And a plan of how to do that, whether it's already a plan of which friend she's going to go to, keeping a burner phone somewhere hidden in the house. So if he takes away her phone or breaks her phone or disconnects the house phone, if people still even have house phones, and she has an extra phone that she could call 911 with. Whether it's a little suitcase with all her basic essentials. So if she only has, if he leaves to the shed for a minute and she only has 2 minutes to leave, she has a little bag all ready that she could run with. So she doesn't have to start searching for her toothbrush and pat. She has everything set in one little bag hidden in the
Make an
closet.
escape.
Basic safety planning.
Mhm.
That I would love them to learn as well. So that was really the goal of the program and of the coalition. And we've had many conferences where we invite, clergy people from all over the state, whether it's, Jewish, Muslim, Christian. We've had Catholic, priests with collars. We've had, imams. We've had rabbis. We've had reverends and, men, women, old, young, whatever it is. As many people as we could get into that room to just educate them about, again, what it looks like. And because it is
wonderful.
it's a very different thing than just, having a fight with your spouse. It's so, yes, that was the goal. Talks about
where are we going? But before we go to just the general idea of what's going to happen in November from you, how is COVID affecting the prisons? I mean, what are you guys having to deal with? Is it affecting the way that you rule? If there have been changes?
So the court, at least in Maryland, every state's different. The court was closed from about mid-March to beginning of June. When we opened beginning of June, it was just for remote hearings. No one was allowed into the courthouses besides for the judges and the staff. About 2 weeks ago or so, we opened to the public. But we're just doing hearings and remote hearings. So we are, DOC, the Department of Corrections, is not transporting people who are in jail yet into the courthouse for safety reasons, for COVID safety reasons. Are
people going to get off because they're going to say, well, it's COVID, I can't go?
No, people are not getting off, but they are getting out. Basically, the court has reviewed almost every case at this point of people that are being held in detention centers pre-trial and have gone through each of them to make a determination if they can be released pre-trial. Whether on a home monitoring bracelet, on home detention, or just on a bail or on a recog, whatever it is. And the determination that's analyzed through is A, is that person a risk to public safety? 2, is that person a flight risk? And at this point, those are normally the 2 general factors for bail reviews. The third now is also, are they particularly vulnerable to COVID? So, the judges have been taking into consideration age. They've been taking into consideration pre-existing conditions. I mean, I had a young man in front of me who had sickle cell. Well, sickle cell if he got COVID, he would most likely die. I mean, it's, it's a very serious underlying condition. There are a lot of people in jail with HIV, which, compromises their immune system. There are people in jail with severe asthma. So those are things that we definitely consider. Now, again, we're still, if someone is a danger to the community and, is accused of murdering several people, et cetera, most likely he did not get out. I don't think very many guys accused of murder have gotten out. Yeah. But there have been men who have gotten out that were being held, but under the circumstances, they were released. No. The true problem really is the jury situation. Is we can't have jury trials. The court is telling us that we're going to start in October. you know, if you got a jury notice now, would you go? Of course I would go,
Yeah,
but
well, I want to serve my community. I would,
right. I don't know
yeah.
if we're going to get the number of jurors that we need to get. I don't know how we're going to deal with jury boxes, jury rooms.
Right.
The jurors are usually in very small areas. They sit next to each other. Jury rooms. Yeah, so I'm very concerned about that. And we have men who have been sitting, who thought they were going to have trials in March, April,
they're sitting.
May, June,
Ooh.
July, August, September, and now we're in October, and we're not even sure we're going to able to swing it. So that is really one of the great tragedies of this all. Is that people have a right to a trial, and they have a right to
a speedy trial. Yeah,
exactly. And they're not going to get it because of this terrible pandemic.
I've been wondering, just off the side, are these masks helping with crime? You can't identify people.
Oh, I don't know. I don't arrest people, so I don't know.
And listen, the joke was when this first came out, how's a black man going to walk into a store with a mask?
I'm not going to laugh at that one.
I know. I'll keep you politically correct.
But you can make that joke. I cannot.
I know. We got that.
But,
I'm a comedian in the group. That's my way.
There you go. I think that people tell me crime is down. That's actually completely false. I think we need to distinguish between crime being down and arrests being down. Those are really two different things, right? Just because people are not being arrested doesn't mean that the crime is down. Because if you look at the crimes that the police are focusing on, which are just the major crimes, those are way up. So we are way up in our murder rate between this year and last year. Okay, so the murder, those kind of crimes, the police are still actively investigating, etc. And those numbers are very high. Yes, our arrests for possession and disturbing the peace and all that, those are down because the police are not bothering with those crimes, and it's not worth it to risk their lives COVID-wise to go into someone's house not knowing what's going, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But the major crimes that they are focused on were at the level, if not higher. So I don't really buy the argument that crime is down. I just think arrests are down. Mm-hmm. And as you said, yes, domestic violence is way up. I know in Baltimore, at least, in the lower court that handles protective orders in the city, just in the city, forgetting about surrounding areas, just in the city, we have 6 judges in 6 different courtrooms who are only doing protective orders all day, every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. How do you have a protective order in the middle of COVID? Somebody's got to be out in the street.
Well, that's a big problem.
Oh, that's another problem. Y'all, it just keeps.
Yeah.
It keeps. And see, we don't see this side. That's why I wanted you to come on, Judge Karen, because we don't have any clue about this side of our society. I always say there are two societies in America, inside and outside. And just, oh gosh, I just can't even imagine. I applaud you on the work that you do. I really do. I got a chance to be on the board of advisors for Rahway State Prison's lifers group back in the day.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah. And I just learned at that time that there aren't always bad people. They're just people who make bad decisions. Karen, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with you, as always. It's just been so enlightening. And, and I love the conversation because you give enough insight to give us enough to think about, so we don't automatically make the judgments that a lot of us do. And I love the things that you bring up about having an open conversation about race. And it's going to be difficult for both sides, the knee-jerk reactionists and the people who are just really curious and want to know. But, yeah, it's a tough conversation. But
educate. We really have got to educate.
Yeah.
And, I hope that we could build bridges between our communities. That's really important to me. I saw there was I'm not going to say names because I'm not a sports person, so I can't even remember names. But there was a football player who did some pretty anti-Semitic tweets, and a Jewish football player. They do exist. I know. I was
about to say.
I know we don't raise our boys to be football players, but
that's okay. There's jumbo shrimp too.
There you go. Apparently, there are some Jewish football players. That was interesting enough for me to learn. Who basically reached out to him and said, "Hey, I would love to discuss this with you. Why don't I come with you to the African American Museum and you come with me to the Holocaust Museum?"
Wonderful.
And I thought that was such a great way to address it. Because it's about learning and education and understanding. And, there's this misconception that like all Jewish people are rich. And I could tell you firsthand that there are a lot of poor Jewish people. We have organizations here in Baltimore, Jewish organizations, that every Thursday night package food that they leave on the doors of poor people to have food for the weekend and for the Sabbath. I would say in the Jewish day schools, over half of the people can't afford to pay tuition and are on tuition reduction. This concept of that Jewish people are not rich. Are there a lot of Jewish people that are rich? There are Jewish people that are rich. Well, there are a lot of white people that are rich. There are a lot of Asian people that are rich, right?
And we got a few black folks who are rich.
Yes, 1,000%.
Maybe 5.
Yeah, no, you're more than 5. Okay, my next door neighbor
Oprah, Jay-Z.
That's not even rich. That's next level. That's super rich.
That's like billion.
Right. That's, and you have a couple of Wall Street guys. What's his name? Robert Johnson and this other guy who I was just reading about,
But I like that you're bringing up, don't make the assumption, because, it's like what I love so much about the Holocaust Museum or the Tolerance Museum here in LA is when you walk in the door and they've got the place where the curator comes and tells you what you're about to see. And then there are these 2 big doors, and one says prejudice, and the other says not prejudice. And it says choose your door. And the one that says not prejudice, you can't even open that door, is locked. So it's assuming from the beginning that we all have a prejudice. Yeah, I love the story about the football players. I think that's great.
Yeah, you should Google it. It's really, really cool.
We should keep this conversation going. Maybe we do a judge and journalist.
You know where to find me, girl.
I know where to find you.
There's also, it's actually on the Holocaust Memorial that we have here in Baltimore, where it's like, they came for the gays, and I wasn't gay, so I kept quiet. They came for the tradesmen, but I wasn't a tradesman, so I kept quiet. They came for I can't remember all the different things. They came for the Marxists, and I wasn't and the whole list. He goes, and then they came for me, and there was no one left to help me, and that's that's really what it is that minorities, whatever it is, our Jews may have white skin, but we're not whites. We are not Caucasian. Okay, we might look Caucasian, but in essence, we are a minority. And minorities need to stick together and support each other, because if they take away your rights, my rights are next. If they take away my rights, your rights are next.
That's right.
And we need to, and I think our communities can learn a lot from each other. And I just, me, in my own way, I have built many, many bridges.
Karen, you are a universal human being. You love all of humanity, I tell you. You can see Karen anywhere. Karen will hang out with LL Cool J. I turned on Instagram the other day. There she is with Fat Joe. I mean, this is a woman who just really goes the whole spectrum, but you always keep that humanitarianism in your heart. And that's why so many of us love you. All of us love you. And I want us to keep this dialogue going because you are so on it, and you know what you're talking about, and you're not afraid of anything. And I just want to keep this dialogue going. It's good stuff, Karen. Thank you so much, Judge Karen Friedman. Where can we follow you? How can we support you? What can we do?
Oh, vote.
Yes. Oh, what's going to happen this November? Oh my God, what are you thinking?
Please vote.
Please vote.
Vote and pray for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Pray for her, everyone, every night, whatever your religion is. If you get down on your knees, if you do whatever you do, just keep RBG in your prayers.
Yes, I know. Boy, she must be a huge influence on you.
Oh my gosh, she needs to live. Oh, that woman just needs to just hold on just a little bit longer.
She has put up a good fight. That woman.
She is she is like an itty bitty thing. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen her in person. She literally looks like if you would sneeze too hard, you would push her over. Teeny. Like, she's probably my height sitting down. Okay, and she is. Yeah, we need to pray for her health.
Yeah, she's been a dynamo. Well, you know something, one day, many moons from now, you'll be that great lady on the bench.
That little old lady.
Little old lady. No, do you dream of doing going like big Supreme Court stuff?
Of course, that would be super cool. You know what I mean? I mean, if I'm going to say no, I mean, if someone asks me, I'm not going to.
Your business is like getting your own talk show.
Listen, it's a very difficult, for someone like me who is out and doing and going, and it is a very restrictive position. So it would definitely change my life in a lot of ways. And also, like, basically, when you're doing what I'm doing, you're the king of your castle, meaning I don't have to ask anyone. The rulings are my rulings. I don't have, 8 other people that I have to consult with, and you know what I mean? And so I think that would be an interesting dynamic as well, because I could, my opinion could just be, all right, and I'm the dissent and everybody else, agrees. And, so there are a lot of things that would be great about it. A lot of things I think that would make it very difficult. I don't think it's happening, but,
you never know. Anything else that you want to say or promote or?
No, I just, like I said, I hope everybody votes and knows that this election is really, really important. And I want to encourage people to also vote on the local level. Okay, obviously voting for president is very important, but I don't think that people realize how important voting in their local elections are, because on a day-to-day basis, those are really the people that are affecting your lives way more than the president is. I think that what also people don't realize is that the presidency, it's almost its most powerful thing is their appointment of judges, because a president is there for 4 years, maybe 8 years. If a president is appointing a federal judge who's 52, okay, that judge will be there most likely for the next 30 to 40 years. Right. They have no retirement age. So when that president is long gone and the next president has already reversed every single thing that former president did, the one thing that new president can't do is reverse the appointments of the judiciary. Once they're in, they are in. And people don't realize how much of their day-to-day is affected by judges' rulings on that federal level. Mm-hmm. So, so really, that I just think that people don't get how important it is to have a president that will appoint judges that fall into your mindset. And
I love that, because I being totally transparent, I need to learn more about politics. I've always been, but this is the most important year ever. And you're right. I love that takeaway. Learn who your politicians are on the local level, and don't forget. I see why you're saying, please, Mrs. Ginsburg, hang in there. But yeah, our judicial lineup is very important too, and knowing what the issues are. I mean, we're all having to think and really face some just can't put your head in the sand anymore. It's in our face every day, every day. But we can make a huge difference in November. And I don't know about you, but I plan to make that difference. I'm gonna do whatever I can.
Well, unfortunately, you and I both live in states that make absolutely no difference. But all of you listening in Ohio, in Florida,
Michigan,
go vote. Pennsylvania, Michigan, go vote.
I tell you, Judge Karen Friedman, thank you so much, my sister. I love you so much, and thank you for gracing us here on Rolonda On Demand. Thanks, honey. Let me remind you that if you're looking for a really good, juicy romance novel, I want you to choose mine this summer. Rolonda Watts wrote Destiny Lingers. It's endorsed by Dr. Maya Angelou, and it's a good, juicy read. It's an interracial love story about two kids who couldn't be together because of segregation, but time moves on and destiny lingers. And they get a second chance at their first love. What would you do for a second chance at your first love? Well, see how a cop and a journalist make it all happen. Good talk about race and class in this book, and I think you'll enjoy it. So pick one up today. Go out there or stay at home, wear a mask, and do something good.